I'm really pleased to have Andrew Mitchell joining me on today's call. Andrew's one of our consultants within our cloud infrastructure team and really specialises in SQL. So my name is Dave Archbold and I'm one of the managed services specialists here at Visual. Just before we start today's webcast, there's a little bit of webcast guidance I'd just like to run through with you first of all. Firstly, we'd love people to ask questions throughout today's webcast. Now, please feel free to use the instant message function within Skype, or if you're dialed into the call, please feel free to drop any questions through to inquiries@visual.com. Just to eliminate any background noise, we've actually got everybody's phones muted at the moment. We will be taking those off mute at the end of today's session, and again, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have for either myself or for Andrew. We're also going to be recording today's webcast, so if you want to go back and review it at a later date, or if any of your colleagues unfortunately couldn't join us this morning, please feel free to distribute it and send it out to them. Now, hopefully everyone on today's call has had some experience of working with Visual in the past. For those of you who don't know us, Visual are 100% Microsoft focused. We specialise in helping organisations really get the most out of their investments that they've made in Microsoft technologies. Now, Visual as an organisation is split into two parts, the first of which is our consulting business, and consulting is again split into two parts itself. The first of which is our technical consulting. So with our technical consulting, Visual are quite unique in as much as they cover the vast majority of Microsoft technologies. There's very, very little that we don't do when it comes to Microsoft. So although we cover all the technologies, we still specialise in the individual fields. So in order for us to do this, we've split our technical consulting into 5 distinct practices. The first of which is business productivity. So our business productivity consultants specialise in the likes of CRM or SharePoint. So if you've got a SharePoint consultant engaged, you can be guaranteed that all they do on a day-to-day basis is help customers either design or deploy a SharePoint solution. The next practice that we've got is our unified communications and messaging, and this is where the specialists sit who look after the likes of Skype for Business or Microsoft Exchange. The next is systems management, or as it's now been rebranded, the cloud infrastructure team. And this is where the guys sit who look after System Center or help with desktop deployments, help you kind of identify whether it may be suitable to go into a cloud scenario, or if kind of hybrid would be best for yourselves. The next practice that we've got is identity and access perimeter. So really looking at things like Forefront Identity Manager, Active Directory Federation services, making sure that the identity part of any Microsoft technologies links in, and you can use things like single sign-on. The most recent team that we've got within our technical consulting is our application development team. And these guys are doing some absolutely fantastic work at the moment in creating bespoke applications built on Microsoft technologies. The key one that we've recently released is something called Room 365, which is an online booking system. So it enables you to book rooms, to book catering, to book any equipment that you may need, and that's all kind of interlinked with Exchange, with SharePoint, with CRM, and it's an absolutely fantastic tool that the guys have done really, really well to be able to develop. The next part of our consulting business is our kind of business consultancy. And this is really where we try and work with customers to kind of align their IT strategy to their business strategy. So to this end, we've got strategic consulting. This is where our engagement managers sit. So as Visual can cover all of the Microsoft technologies, it's sometimes really useful to get an engagement manager or a project manager involved to be able to tie up all the different practices and to make any transformational projects run as smoothly as possible. We've also got our architects who sit within this particular practice. And these are the guys who can help design some really fantastic solutions to be able to allow you to use technology to drive your business forward as best as possible. Now, the next part of Visual's business is our services arm, and this is all about helping customers to kind of monitor and optimize the use of Microsoft technologies. What we don't want to do is kind of put technology in place for you and then leave you unsupported. So we've got a fantastic support team based in our Stafford offices who are able to offer either fully managed solutions right across your infrastructure, and that can even include third-party solutions where we can front-end any queries and triage any problems that you may have. Our support is offered on both a kind of proactive and reactive basis. So if anything breaks, the support team are there to be able to answer the phone, pick up emails, and remotely connect up and resolve any issues that you may have. But we think it's equally important, if not more so, that we're kind of proactive in the support that we offer. So if we're supporting any systems for you, we will put SCOM agents onto the servers that we're monitoring, and we will create a daily health report for you, so you'll know before the start of business if there's any particular problems with any of the systems that you're using, and we can start working on that for you straight away so that the end users then aren't affected. Now again, visual support can be done either on-prem, if you're completely cloud, or if you've got a kind of hybrid approach, the support team are more than capable of being able to assist whatever your infrastructure currently sits like. So, as I've said, Visual are 100% Microsoft focused. We're a completely customer-centric company, so the customer's at the heart of everything that we do, and we're all about providing consulting and managed services to help build and support innovative Microsoft solutions. What we really want to do is help customers to leverage their investment that they've made in Microsoft technologies, and we feel that we're committed to doing that, and that we feel that we're competent, credible and capable. We're very, very proud to announce that we've just been named Microsoft's UK Country Partner of the Year, which is fantastic for us, especially after being finalists back in 2012 and 2013. It's a real great achievement for us. We also have kind of multiple Microsoft case studies, and we're a smart team and partner for Microsoft as well. So Microsoft really trusts us when it comes to delivering innovative solutions to their customers. Now, as I've mentioned previously, we really do see IT being at the heart of positive change within organisations. I know particularly in the public sector, there's an awful lot of drive to be doing more for less. And we've created some fantastic propositions that we go out to the marketplace and talk about. The first of which is our connected business strategy. And for us, that's all about making sure that an organisation's kind of business objectives, how they'd like to engage with their customers, so be it a citizen, a customer, it's really about making sure that you've got the right engagement strategy, but also about making sure that your staff have got the right information in the right place at the right time to be able to adopt that strategy. Now, once you've got your kind of engagement strategy, we think it's equally important that we actually empower the workforce to be able to deliver that. And to this end, we've got our end user computing strategy, which again is all about making sure that your staff have got the right tools to be able to engage with your citizens and customers in the right way. So it's looking at the types of hardware or equipment people may need. Do they need to have a tablet? Do they need to have a laptop? Are smartphones going to be necessary? Can it be a virtual desktop infrastructure, or do people need good old-fashioned computers next to their desk? And it's really about making sure that your staff have got the right tools to be able to engage and interact with your customers in the right way. Now, if you've got your staff engaging and they're empowered to be able to do that, it's critical that, or we think it's critical that your infrastructure is enhanced enough to be able to support the strategies that you've put in place. Now, to this end, we've got an optimized service vision strategy, and it's all about making sure that your infrastructure is sufficient to be able to support the business and the business objectives. Now, this could be looking to move into cloud, still keeping things on-prem if that's the way that we need to go, or kind of which a lot of people seem to be doing at the moment, in as much as adopting a hybrid approach. So putting what they can into the cloud and keeping what they need to on-prem. So we've got a solution for everyone, and we think that this really can put IT at the heart of positive change within organisations and really help to transform businesses. And what I'd like to do now is just pass over to Andrew Mitchell, who I say is our SQL and Business Intelligence consultant, and he's going to run through the next majority of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Right, so just to introduce myself, my name's Andrew Mitchell. I've been working with SQL Server since SQL Server 6.5, which is a good number of years now. I've worked in local government and in travel industry as well as a SQL Server DBA and as team leader. And I then moved into consulting probably about 7 or 8 years ago, which is where I've been ever since. So what we're going to cover today is we've got a fairly loose agenda. It's fairly flexible. Some of these things are going to take 5 minutes, some are going to take 2 minutes, some are going to take 10 minutes. So what we're going to look at is how to find out what your SQL Server lifecycle is for your 2005 and later products, what your upgrade paths are from SQL Server 2005, what you need to do as a business, things you need to look at that could impact your applications and your databases, what to do about your data transformation services packages if you have any, what you need to do next, so what you take away from this and what you need to look at within your business, what we can do to help, and questions and answers really. If you have any questions, just chip in with them on the way through and we'll pick them up as we go along. So the first thing we need to look at is, how do you find the SQL Server lifecycle? I mean, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but if you look at the lifecycle support page on the Microsoft website, it is pretty daunting. If I bring it up now. There we go. So this is the Microsoft Support Lifecycle page, and if we search for SQL Server 2005, this is what you get. So you get the product version. Oops, there we go. The product version, whether it's Enterprise Edition, Compact Edition, Developer Edition, etc. The lifecycle start date, which was the date that Microsoft released the product. The mainstream support end date, the extended support date, and the service pack support date. So if we go back to here, so what that means is that so Microsoft have now got a support statement saying they will support a SQL Server product for 10 years from the date of availability, which is the lifecycle start date or general release date, or 2 years after the next release of SQL Server, whichever is longer. So mainstream support, which is the next column here, is things like service packs, hot fixes, cumulative updates, and they're things that are generally available. So that would be things like your service packs for SQL Server, your cumulative updates, which I've already said actually, and the extended support phase of SQL Server only includes security updates or paid support for SQL Server. So what that means is that once you reach the extended support cutoff date, there is no further support for SQL Server unless you're willing to pay for it. And Microsoft really like this because it gives them a blank check really, and they can charge you whatever they want depending on the level of support you want. So what that means is that the initial start support date for SQL Server, sorry, the release date for SQL Server is here. The mainstream support, which has already passed, was 2011, and then you've got the extended support cutoff date, which is next year, which doesn't give you a lot of time to actually plan your migrations. So where can we go from here? So the upgrade options you've got are going to SQL Server 2008, which you can run 2005 databases in compatibility mode, which you can leave. So the version here is the upgrade column here is the version of SQL Server that you'd be going to. So for a 2005 database, you'd be going from version 90 to version 100. You can leave it in compatibility mode at version 90 on 2008. Excuse me. Oh. Screen's gone blank. Okay, let's try something else. Right, has it come back now?
Andrew, I can see slide 9 at the moment. Where can I go from here?
Okay. Right. So, Sam still can't see the screen. Okay. Let's just wait a second and see if Sam can see it again. Should I try leaving and joining again? Possibly. It's probably down to a network speed on your side. It may be worth trying that. Let's just wait 1 second and see if he joins again. Right, is that any better? Can you see it now, Sam? Okay, let's carry on. So the other options you've got are going to SQL Server 2012, which will, of which the compatibility mode for SQL Server 2012 is 110. You can also leave the 2005 databases in 2005 compatibility mode on 2012. So what that actually means is that any of the new features released since 2005 would not be available to that database. So things like partitioning of databases, column store indexes, things like that would not be available to your 2005 database because it's in compatibility mode. Okay, so for 2014 you can't upgrade directly because it will upgrade the database to 2014 compatibility mode because support for SQL Server 2005 was dropped in 2014. There are ways around that, which we'll come to in a little bit, but it does actually mean a lot of application testing. Okay, so Sam's going to switch over. So the other options you've got are 2016 as well, which comes out next year. That also doesn't support 2005, but you can upgrade the database to 2016 compatibility mode. So they're your on-premise options. The other options you've got are going to the cloud infrastructure, so Microsoft Azure. So you can actually go to an Azure database, which would upgrade your database to version 12, which is roughly around about 2014, 2016 compatibility mode. So some of the new features in 2016 are being released into the cloud first before they get released to the general availability. And the other option you've got is a SQL database in an Azure VM, which would be a minimum compatibility level of SQL Server 2008. So that's another option for you. Oops. Excuse me. So the things you have to look at, the things that determine where you can go, are the vendor support. So what is the latest version of SQL Server that the vendor supports for their product? A lot of the time you will be fixed with vendor support because it'll be a legacy vendor, and they won't have tested it on later versions of SQL Server. Excuse me. Sometimes there will be a patch available or a newer release available, which will then allow you to do a database upgrade to run on a later version of SQL Server. If you don't have vendor support available, then the options are you can run in compatibility mode, but you'll have to fully test the product on the newer version of SQL Server. Sorry, or you can fully test the product on a newer version of SQL Server by using the upgrade rather than using compatibility mode. Another option is migrating the application to a different product. Doing nothing, that is always an option. So that would mean then that you're having to run a legacy server of, for example, 2008 R2 with a 2005 database on it for the foreseeable future until you change out your application, or purchase Microsoft's extended support, which will cost, well, all the rumours I've heard are that it costs an absolute fortune, but you're not guaranteed support. It's whether Microsoft want to do it for you or not. So basically, what do you need to do? So you need to know your systems. You need to know how your application works, what it interacts with. So you need to know, so you need to discover all of your interfaces, find all the components it interacts with, and have a good understanding of how it all fits together. So if you've got a web app, then you need to know how it communicates with your SQL Server, and any upstream and downstream components that it uses. You also need to know what the options are for upgrading. So you need to contact the vendor, talk to them about what your options are. And one of the main tools you can use in this is things like SQL Server Upgrade Advisor. That will tell you if your application is able to upgrade to a later version of SQL Server without any work. Things like DTS packages, data transformation services, they were dropped in SQL Server 2005, so they're no longer available to upgrade to. The options there are to go to SQL Server integration services, and things like that. So there are tools available that will take your DTS packages and migrate them for you, but I've never heard any good things about these, and I find that it's always better, it gives you a better understanding of your product if you actually migrate them yourselves or get someone to migrate them for you and rewrite them in SQL Server integration services, mainly because the performance increase is a lot better. In some cases, you're talking 20, 40-fold increase in speed and performance on a migrated DTS package to SSIS. So the business, don't forget the users. The users have a vested input into this. They are the people that use the product at the end of the day. If you keep them involved, then they may actually not want this product upgraded. They may want a new product, or find that it doesn't actually meet the business needs of today, or it may not fit in with what they want to do going forwards. So the bottom line of this is the cost as well. I mean, you need to take into account the cost of running legacy hardware, the cost of migrating to a new platform, the cost of upgrading the databases. And basically, is there a business case for the migration? Is there a budget to cover it? You know, these are all things you have to consider in migrating from 2005. So if we now look at SQL Server Upgrade Advisor, I mean, this is one of the major tools that will give you an insight into what you can and what you can't do with your SQL Server 2005 database. So if I switch now to my desktop, and we'll go to let's go to SQL Server 2005. Here we go. Let's just close this. So the SQL Server 2005, sorry, the SQL Server Upgrade Advisor is available on all the SQL Server media. The one I've got installed on here is the 2012 Upgrade Advisor. So if you install that on your 2005 server, it does actually need some extra components installed. It will actually come and say that you need. Let's see, I've got it on here still. No, I haven't got it on there. It says that you actually need an extra component, but it actually gives you a link to the Microsoft website to download it. So the first thing you need to do is launch the upgrade, the analysis wizard. And it defaults to the local server. If you're using a named instance, you can just stick the named instance in there. And if you click detect, it'll actually come back and tell you what it's found on the server. If you tick DTS, it says DTS isn't available. You can actually run the SQL Server 2008 Upgrade Advisor if you want to analyze your DTS packages for migration to SSIS. Okay, so authentication. And on here I have the 2005 sample databases, and I've also got the SQL 2000 sample databases on there, because a lot of you are probably running SQL 2000 databases on your 2005 servers or later servers. But it's saying here that compatibility level database Northwind is less than 90 and is not supported in the Upgrade Advisor. So anything previous to SQL Server 2005 is not supported by the Upgrade Advisor. So what you can do there is you could actually change the compatibility mode of those databases to SQL Server 2005 and then run it again. But we can do that in a little bit. Right, if we click next. And run it. Right, so that may take a while. These are actually fairly small VMs I'm running these on, so that'll actually take a few minutes. But what we can do actually is open a previous report that I've run. Open report. Again, if we open that one. So these are the results that you get. So what you get here is the priority of the error, when you need to fix it, so before the upgrade, after the upgrade, or whether it's an advisory. So the first one is full text search has changed since SQL Server 2008. So there you go. There's a link on how on the issue and how to resolve it. This database doesn't use full text search. It's just in there as a general advisory. So the next one is XML changes. There are quite a lot of XML changes between different versions of SQL Server. So if your database uses XML, that's one thing to be aware of. The next one here is database compatibility levels. So after upgrading your database, anything with so anything from SQL Server 6 upwards will be set to 2005 compatibility mode. Oops, sorry, of 90. And the last one here is other database engine upgrade issues, which just catches everything else. So it's just saying there's other issues that it can't detect. Excuse me. So that's a very basic report because it's not really found any issues there. Maybe that's still running. But if we look at if you look on the Microsoft website, there is a list, SQL Server. So there is a list of things that have changed between versions of SQL Server. So if you look under SQL Server 2005 database engine backward compatibility, so you've got a list of deprecated features that are discontinued, so discontinued functionality. Breaking changes are the one to look at because that is things that could break your applications, and behavioral changes within the database engine as well. So if we look at this one, which is the breaking changes, so in here you have, let's scroll down and find something that's database engine log files, something you're going to come across. There you go. So here's one that says duplicate table or index names are not allowed. They were allowed in SQL Server 2000 in a roundabout way, but that's the functionality that's been taken out. There's nothing major jumping out here. So a lot of this is about legacy stuff. So it's about SQL Server 2000, 6.5, 7. If we look at SQL Server 2008, so this is the minimum you should be looking at, which this is changes from SQL Server 2005 to 2008. So there's new collations to be aware of. Common language runtime was introduced, so that may or may not break things. New dynamic management views. If you're using those, it's something to be aware of. And this is where the major changes are in the Transact SQL reference side here. So I mean, it's worth looking through this if you're comfortable with it. Right. So we had a brief look at the breaking changes. There's a section on breaking changes for each version of SQL Server that's released. So if you're running a SQL Server 2000 database in compatibility mode on 2005, you'll need to start looking at the 2000 to 2005 breaking changes, and then work up from there to whichever version of SQL Server you want to host the database on. So we basically touched on data transformation services, or DTS packages. They were dropped in 2005 and replaced by SQL Server integration services. As I said, there are migration tools available. I've not heard great things about them because all they do is try and lift and shift what you've got in your DTS onto SSIS. If you've got any poorly performing DTS packages, you will have poorly performing SSIS packages. And there's been such advances in integration services over the last couple of releases of SQL Server that the performance increase is huge. And by parallelizing your streams within SSIS, you can actually get a huge performance increase. DTS didn't like running things in parallel to some extent, but now with SSIS, that is the norm. You can use parent-child packages. You can do a lot more. It's a lot more powerful. It's a lot more extensible. So things that took I don't know 4 or 5 hours to run in DTS packages can actually run in minutes within SSIS. And SSIS is now one of the one of the leading ETL packages out there. So that's extract, transform, and load for migrating data. So previously, you used to have to use Business Intelligence Development Studio to do design of your DTS packages, but now they've actually integrated it all within Visual Studio. So the whole desktop environment for SQL Server from 2008 onwards, so 2008 or 2012 onwards, became Visual Studio. So you've got a common platform for all your SQL Server integration, and the releases of that are now done by the Visual Studio team rather than the SQL Server team, so it actually gets updated a lot more frequently. Okay, so what I've got next. So if we now have a look at migrating a 2005 database to SQL Server 2012. There you go, this is actually finished now. Let's have a very quick look. See, that's exactly the same as the one we just looked at. Okay. So if we start. Management Studio. Let's just make sure we've got a current up-to-date backup. So what we've got on here is on the C drive backup. So we should have a backup of all the databases. Okay, let's run an up-to-date backup just to make sure. Okay, so on here I've got the Ola Hallengren scripts for the maintenance tasks. So I've got the database backups, the index optimization, etc. on there. So if I do a full backup, of all the databases, that should only take a couple of seconds. Okay. And that's finished. Right, so if I now switch over to my 2012 server, and if I copy those across, while they're copying, come on. Right, let's open the script. So the first thing I'm going to do is to actually attach a copy of one of the databases. Come on. Do apologise for the speed of these VMs. Right, see if it'll open now. Isn't technology wonderful? Whenever you run it and you're not doing a webcast or anything like that, it runs perfectly, and then you come to start using it, it's crawling. Actually ran all this through yesterday, and it took minutes, and it's just want to behave today. Right. Skip these files. Okay, right. So what we'll do first is we'll open these up. Right, okay. So there's two ways to transfer a database across. You can actually do detach and attach, or you can do a backup and restore. So the first one I'm going to do is we will do an attach. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is attach a SQL Server 2000 database, good old Northwind for those of you that remember it. And let's just make sure we've got a copy of it there before we start. See, Northwind. Okay, so there's a copy of the database. And we will attach that. There you go, and that's failed because it's saying cannot be upgraded because its non-release version 539 is not supported by this version of SQL Server. You can't open a database that is incompatible with this version of SQL Server. You must recreate the database. So if you actually look, if you run SP help DB, so you've got a compatibility level of the database. But if you actually look in sys databases, then all the way over here, you've got actually the internal version of the database. Which in this case is 706. So what it's saying there is that it's saying that 539 is too old. So you can't attach a database that is a 2000 database to a 2012 instance of SQL Server. But what we can do is we can restore the database. So if we just see what the latest copy we've got is, backup, and we're doing pubs. Okay, and we're going to restore that. So when we run that, there you go. So that has now restored the database. But if you notice, it's still executing. So if we refresh that, there you go. You'll see it's actually upgraded the database as well. There you go. So it's upgraded from 611 to 621 and then all the way up to 702. So if we now look, if we now run the same script again, share database versions, you see we have pubs here. Compatibility level 90, which is 2005, and it's internally version 706, which is SQL Server 2012. So it's done an internal upgrade of the database. which means that you can't then take that and put it back onto a SQL Server 2005 or 2000 instance of SQL Server. And what was the other script I had? So if we did the same with the AdventureWorks databases, well, actually, let's actually do it. Let's do the 2005 one. So if we go back to here, databases, detach. Okay, so let's copy those across. And let's go back here. And we'll wait. Okay, so that doesn't appear to be playing. So we'll come back to that in a second. So what we can also do, if we go back here, okay, so once you've actually upgraded your data, hosted your database on a 2012, 2008 or 2 instance of SQL Server, there's a couple of things that you should look at doing. One is a database consistency check, and if you run that with what's it called? With data purity, it will actually check the data integrity of your database. It can take quite a while to run. I actually set it running last night on these really poorly performing VMs. It took about 3 hours on the pubs database, whereas it would normally take a minute or 2 or 3. But that will actually just give you a bit more confidence that the database you've copied across is healthy. And then the next thing to do is decide if you want to upgrade the compatibility mode of the SQL Server database to 2012, 2008 R2. And that all depends on the functionality you require within the database. If you don't require any of the new functionality like availability groups, column store indexes, what else is there? Backup compression, for example, then you can leave it in compatibility mode. One thing to be aware of is that you do need to test your application against the new database just to make sure everything is working properly. So let's go back and see if that's working in yet. So if we run that now, that should there we go. So that has now attached the database. There you go, and it's giving you some warnings as well to do with the XML formatting, changes between version 6.3.1 and 6.3.2. So index is disabled because XML data bound to it may contain negative values. Okay, so it's disabled the XML. So that is a prime example of things to look out for between the XML functionality changes. There you go, and the rest of it's all worked. So that's something you need to look out for. Is the XML. Right, so let's go back. So the first things you've got to do, so your next steps are plan your upgrade. It's no good waiting until the last minute to decide you want to upgrade to 2005. As you can see, it does require a little bit of work. So things like running the database and database tuning, database upgrade advisor, migrating your database, testing it with the application, making sure there's no date time issues or XML issues with your application running as a newer version of SQL Server. If you're unsure or need help, ask for advice. There's lots of options available. It's very daunting. There are some things that will work for you, some things that won't. Yeah, another thing, as I say again before, don't leave it to the migration until the last minute. Don't forget to involve the business. It's their application at the end of the day. They're the ones that have got to use it. They're the ones that have got to be happy with it. And they know the application better than anybody else. Test and test again. I've found quite a few issues where we've migrated the 2005 database to 2012, 2008 R2. They've gone, yeah, it works fine. 3 or 4 days down the line, the user's gone, I've put all this data in and it's coming back as something completely different. So you need to make sure that the users are happy with the full functionality of the application rather than just the bits they use on a day-to-day basis. This is a golden opportunity to upgrade. It's not very often you get forced to move from one version of SQL Server to another. And it's not just the SQL Server that's the problem here. It's a lot of your 2005 instances will be on Windows Server 2003. It's a good opportunity to upgrade and migrate. If you're going from physical to virtual, or 2005 to 2012, or 2014, or from Windows Server 2003 to 2012, it's, make use of the opportunity. And we are here to help and do what we can for you. Right. Any questions?
Molly, can you take everybody off mute?
I think I might have bored everybody to sleep.
Definitely silence, Andrew. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us on today's webcast. If nobody's got any questions, if anybody does think of anything kind of afterwards, or you're watching the recording of this back, please feel free to drop any queries through to inquiries@risual.com, and they'll get forwarded on to the relevant people, and we'd be more than happy to come back and work with you on any of these topics that have been discussed today.
How will you be distributing the recording?
So all our webcasts are on YouTube. What we'll do at the end of today's session is Molly will send out an email to everybody who's attended and everybody who's signed up, and there'll be a link to the recording on there.
Brilliant. I had a computer issue and I had to drop out for about 15 minutes.
Right. No, we'll make sure you get a full copy. You'll get a full copy of the recording today then.
Brilliant, thank you.
No problems.
If there's anything you're not clear about, just drop us a message and I'll try and clarify things for you.
Likewise, if anybody's got any questions for myself, please feel free to send an email through to david@risual.com, and I'm happy to pass that on to the relevant people as well.
Sam's just asking if it's too late to change career. I don't know. I'm thinking after that webcast, I'm actually thinking about it. I'm thinking about becoming a bus driver or something like that. But
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everyone, for joining today's call. If we can, we'll wrap it up there. And as I say, we'll get the link sent out to everyone as soon as possible. Thanks very much.